Hey, what's happening, guys? What is going on? You guys have tuned into Rules for Rebels. Today is Tuesday, January 3rd, 2022. For all intent and purposes, this is the first day of the year. Obviously, January 1st is a holiday. Most people are chilling, watching bowl games, watching movies, hanging out with family. Yesterday, the 2nd, was the observed holiday since New Year's Day fell on a Sunday. Markets were closed yesterday. Most people had the day off work. So today, for all intent and purposes, is the first day of the year. And I think we're going to see the economy start to slide now that we're in 2023. Michael Burry recently came out and said the 2023 is going to be the year of double hockey sticks for investors, keeping that new YouTube rule in mind that we talked about yesterday. Some people are saying you can't swear in the first 8 seconds of a video. Some are saying 15, some are saying 30, and some people are saying you can't swear entirely. So we're going to try to leave even the tame swear words out of this video. But we got a bunch of news to cover today. We're going to be talking about what retailers are going to face in 2023, the real estate markets, how much things have gone up in price. We're going to be taking a look at inflation of a lot of the things you commonly buy. Most Brits are expecting more price increases in 2023. Apple is telling suppliers to make less components in 2023. We got a lot of stuff to talk about in today's video. So without further ado, let's hop right on into it. Yesterday I had some friends over just kind of chilling. Everyone had the day off work. And we did a John Wick movie marathon. I heard there's a John Wick 4 coming out in, I think, February or March or something like that, maybe April at the latest. So if you are a fan of the John Wick series, you may want to catch up and sit down and have a movie marathon of 1, 2, and 3. But let's hop into today's news. So Michael Burry says that 2023 will be the year of double hockey sticks. He's saying that inflation has peaked for now. He thinks inflation is going to, either remain stable or maybe even pull back a little bit. But he said this isn't the end of inflation in this cycle. He's predicting by summer of 2023 that prices are going to spike again, and we're going to see all new high levels of inflation. We're already starting to see gas prices going up. As I was driving around this morning, I saw gas prices at $3.30 near me. Just the other day, I filled up for like $2.95. So it seems like gas prices are on the rise. I think Gas Buddy recently came out and said they expect gas prices to rise in 2023, and I think we're expecting the national average to go up over $4. CNBC had an article yesterday. You guys can check it out. CNBC says retailers will have to deal with more frugal shoppers. So not only are Americans tapped out and maxed out, but those who still do have money are going to be much more frugal about what they're buying. They're not going to be buying luxuries. They're going to be buying necessities. And we've heard this from other articles and things like that as well, right? We've heard that people who previously maybe would have shopped at Whole Foods or Trader Joe's are now shopping at Aldi and Walmart and Dollar Store. Even the wealthy are shopping down. Real estate organizations, as they always do, are coming out saying that it's a great time to buy. They're saying, rates are at 6%, but 6% historically, these are low interest rates. And while that is true, that historically 6% isn't a terrible rate, 6% isn't a terrible rate when the average home price costs $150,000, $175,000. We have seen several years of 20, 30, and 40% year-over-year gains. So when over the course of 3 years, since the Mexican beer cough, when prices have gone up 120%, then paying a 6% mortgage rate isn't really feasible. Most people are priced out. Again, I think it's going to be really interesting to watch what happens in real estate in 2023. I think we kind of have a stalemate with buyers not wanting to buy, sellers not wanting to sell. Who's going to crack first? But I think we are going to see prices trend lower in 2023. We heard that Tesla was offering, I think, a $5,000 or $7,500 discount for people who bought Teslas in the U.S. in 2023 to try to spur on sales. Well, in China, Tesla is offering a 10,000 yuan discount early in 2023 to help move cars. Let's talk about how much the price of things have gone up. Give me a second here while I move on to this article. So The Hedge had an article titled U.S. Inflation, How Much Have Prices Increased in 2022? And they got kind of a cool little infographic here. All items have increased 7.1%, food 10.6%, energy 13.1%, and all items excluding energy 6%. But if you look at a lot of the things that you commonly buy, things are much more expensive. Food at elementary and secondary schools up 254%. Fuel oil up 65%. Eggs up 49.1%. Eggs are up almost 50%. Airlines up 36%. It's going to cost you 36% more to fly. Butter and margarine up 34%. Bread up 15.7%. Rice, pasta, and cornmeal up 16.8%. And I had talked about this before. When Joe Biden started talking about food shortages, I went out and stocked up on a bunch of rice at Costco. I buy these 25 and 50-pound bags of rice. I eat a lot of rice. And I think I told you guys, I think for maybe a 25-pound bag of rice, I was paying 11 or 12 bucks. Stocked up on a bunch, and the next time I was at the store, I walked by the pallet of jasmine rice, and it was like $19 or $21. So rice had literally doubled in price. Here they're saying that it's up 16.8%. Fats and oils up 21.8%. Public transportation up 23.8%. Poultry up 13.1%. Energy up 13.1%. Living room, kitchen, and dining room furniture up 10.3%. Gas up 10%. Let's see, fruits and vegetables up 9.7%, although more recently we've seen fruit and vegetable prices up as much as 40%. Alcoholic beverages at home up 4.5%. Apparel up 3.6%. Beef and veal actually fell 5.2%. And smartphones are down 23.4%. It's funny, you can get a really cheap smartphone right now. You can get a really cheap, I shouldn't even say really cheap, but you can get a cheap smartphone. You can get a cheap flat screen TV, but almost everything, how often do you need to buy a flat screen TV? How many flat screen TVs are you really buying? But then again, how often are you buying eggs? So things that you're buying on a weekly or even daily basis, eggs are up 50%. But hey, that television that you don't need, that's going to be a lot cheaper. So that is the Drudge article. You guys can check that. Or I'm sorry, that's the Hedge article. You guys can check that one out for yourself. What's interesting about the smartphone thing, Apple is telling their suppliers not to produce as many components for smartphones this year. In a year when things are down, maybe people don't need to replace their cell phone every year. I don't know about you guys. Back when companies subsidize the cost of your phone, and just for signing up for a phone plan, you get a cheaper near phone plan. I used to like that, and I'd keep my phone until the plan ran out, and then I'd get another subsidized cell phone. Well, now there are no subsidies. Everyone's having to lay out cash for their phone, and the idea that people are going to spend $1,000, $1,200, even $1,500 every single year to upgrade or replace their cell phone every single year, I don't think we're going to see that. I think a lot of people are going to decide, maybe I'll hold on to my cell phone for another year or two. And Apple's expecting to sell less cell phones, so I'm assuming Samsung and HTC and the rest of the companies are probably going to sell less cell phones as well. I touched on this at the beginning of the video. The majority of Brits believe that prices will increase in 2023, and sentiment oftentimes drives reality. So if people are expecting to pay higher prices, chances are they will wind up paying higher prices. We already covered that. Apple tells suppliers to make less components in 2023. North Carolina is moving to ban TikTok. They want to ban TikTok on government phones and devices. Last week, Indiana became the 20th state to ban TikTok on government devices. And I believe Indiana is actually suing TikTok for their data collection practices and marketing to children. One interesting thing about TikTok, supposedly in TikTok, the algorithm in China, the TikTok algorithm shows kids admiring their teachers, singing songs, doing the arts, doing science experiments. In the U.S., TikTok shows our children, climbing on milk crates, eating Pied Tots, dancing like Instagram thoughts, right? Like China seems to be trying to kind of dumb down and distract and kind of stupidify the American population while they're trying to make their own population smarter, more masculine, more well-educated. And I really do think a ban on TikTok is coming in 2023, if not a ban, heavy regulation. I was surprised to see this. There was a Wall Street opinion piece yesterday by a writer by the name of Alyssa Finley, and the article was titled, I'm not going to say the word, but are the Mexican beer cough things in your arm fueling new Mexican beer cough variants? It goes on to say the Mexican beer cough appears to be evolving in ways that evade immunity. And how crazy is this, right? Like, you would have been kicked off every major social media platform and villainized by the mainstream media if you had said this even a year ago. But today, the Wall Street Journal is writing articles about it. A study found that the average gig worker plans on retiring by 58. That's kind of crazy because most workers are actually expecting to either never be able to retire or be able to retire later in life. So one thing I was wondering, are they making more money? Are they living differently or living more frugally, or both? They also discovered, why do people like gig work? They said the freedom of the projects that they take on, the freedom of when to work and being your own boss. Now, if people are planning on retiring by 58, I'm guessing most of these quote-unquote gig workers are probably professionals, maybe people who do payroll, people who do graphic design, web design, SEO, as opposed to Uber drivers. Uber drivers, I think, are having a tough time. They continue to go on strike. They're just scraping by. But when this article talks about gig workers, I think they're talking about people who actually have a valuable skill and can make decent money out of their gig work. But one thing that we did learn is 70% of these people have changed their spending habits since taking on gig work. So I think what a lot of people are realizing, and we talk about how the Mexican beer cough changed people's values and what they want out of life. I think people are realizing, I'm okay with living a little bit more simply, maybe eating out less, taking less vacations, buying less useless junk I don't need, if it means that I have to work less. So people are taking on gig work to give themselves more flexibility, more time to themselves, more time for their families, less time working, and in return, they're cutting their expenses. In 2023, 1 in 4 Americans are planning on changing their careers entirely. So that's not just a job change. That's, I was a nurse and now I'm going to become an SEO. I was a marketing analyst and now I'm going to become a cosmetologist. 1 in 4 Americans, 25% of people are planning on changing their entire careers in 2023. We've also learned that 25% of Americans are unhappy with their professional lives. That came from a different article, but it's kind of interesting, right? Same percent, 25% of people plan on changing their careers, and we also know that 25% of people are unhappy with their professions and their professional lives, so it makes sense that they want to switch. I believe I got another stat. I don't know if I cover it later here. I think it was 25, maybe even as high as 50% of people plan on leaving their jobs in 2023. I've talked about this before, if you were planning on job hopping to get a better job, get a better title, increase your wages, get better benefits, I think the time to do that was 2020 to 2022, right? This year, I think things are going to get ugly. I think we're going to see a lot more layoffs. I think the markets are going to head for a downturn. I think the mainstream media, the Fed, the government will finally admit that we actually are in a recession. So I think now is probably the bad time to be hopping jobs. I wouldn't want to be the new employee with the least amount of seniority at a company when layoffs start, but that's just me. Article from CNBC, how much money does it cost to be middle class in these cities? So this one comes from CNBC's Make It. It says, here's how much money it takes to be considered middle class in 20 major cities. And you guys can pull this one up for yourself if you want. New York, Newark, and New Jersey. The low end of middle class is $56,000. The high end is $169,000. Los Angeles, Long Beach, and Anaheim. Low end $55,000. I don't think you're going to be doing too well in Anaheim or Los Angeles on $55,000. I think you might be living in one of those homeless communities by the stadium. But high end $165,000. Chicago, Naperville, Elgin, which is Chicago suburbs, $52,000 on the low end, $156,000 on the upper end. Dallas, Fort Worth, $51,000 on the lower end of middle class, $152,000 on the high end. Houston, about the same, $47,000 low end, $142,000 on the high end. I'm trying to find a higher one. Washington, Arlington, Alexandria. Low end to be middle class is $74,000. High end is $221,000. Let's see, Boston, Cambridge, Newton, Massachusetts. Low end of middle class is $67,000. High end is $202,000. San Francisco, Oakley, and Berkeley. Low end $77,000. High end $232,000. I think you're going to be struggling on $77,000 in San Fran. Detroit, a little bit cheaper, $45,000 for the low end of middle class, $134,000 for the high end. Seattle, Tacoma, Bellevue, low end of middle class is $68,000, high end $203,000, and we'll kind of wrap that one up there. Let's see. Inflation across the world is rising. Just to give you guys an idea of the inflation rates in some other parts of the world, Argentina 92%, Turkey 84%, Russia 12%, Italy 11.8%, the UK 10%, Mexico 7.8%. Here's an interesting stat. The national cost of owning versus renting is $1,000 more expensive per month to rent than own a starter home. That's worse than 2006, which was just prior to the Great Recession and the housing crash of 2006, 2008. So that's kind of crazy, right? It's actually going to cost you more to rent right now than it is to own. Now, in some markets like Seattle and San Francisco, this has been the case for a long time because homes were appreciating at such a crazy level that landlords were willing to either make no money or even take a slight loss because they knew a couple years down the road they could sell and make hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. But I don't think anybody is expecting home prices to continue rising at this point. So the idea that landlords would lose on rent and then settle for appreciation. I don't think we're going to be seeing much appreciation. Credit Suisse downgrades Home Depot. They think Home Depot's stock is going to be down in 2023, and I think that kind of shows and highlights how important the housing market and real estate is to this country. You know, it's not just home builders who struggle when homes aren't being built and bought and sold. You also have companies like Home Depot and lumber suppliers and all these other suppliers who provide materials to home builders. They're going to struggle as well in 2023. CNBC had an article yesterday, few stores shut down in 2022, but get ready for that to change in 2023. I've been talking about this a little bit lately. You know, 43% of small businesses and retail stores couldn't pay their rent this past November. Over 50% of restaurants couldn't pay their rent in November or December. You know, restaurants are having a hard time finding workers. Restaurants that used to pay people $8, $9, $10, $11, $12 an hour are now having to pay $18, $20, $22, $24, $25 an hour to attract workers. One of the biggest costs in the restaurant industry is labor costs. You know, any of you guys who've ever managed a restaurant, worked in a restaurant, owned a restaurant, you know, as soon as it gets slow, they start sending people home. Restaurants are very concerned about labor costs, and labor is costing more than ever. So I think it may be that, you know, your town can't support 5 Chipotles. You guys notice I said Chipotle right that time instead of Chipotle. Your city may not be able to support 4 Chili's, 4 Applebee's, 4 TGI Fridays. Not only do people not have the money to spend to frequent and support these restaurants, but they don't have the employers to staff 5 TGI Fridays in your town. So we're going to see a lot more restaurant business and store closures in 2023. Bank of America downgrades Best Buy and says it could fall a further 20%. Best Buy stock is down 5% on the month and 21% on the year. So not as bad as some stocks out there, but it's not a great year. Not only do I think people aren't buying big screen televisions and other kind of consumer items that people want but don't need, but I think these days, I think Best Buy is making a lot more of their money from like appliances, washers, dryers, refrigerators, and if less people are buying homes, they're selling less refrigerators, less washers and dryers, less stoves. I thought this one was interesting. So Bath and Body Works is Goldman Sachs' favorite retail stock for 2023. I thought this was an interesting article. I haven't really been following this story too closely, but you guys remember the murders of those Idaho college students that happened a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago. And they didn't know who did it. Well, they within the past week, they arrested a 28-year-old grad student who I guess went to school in Washington State. And I thought, that's weird. This guy's from Washington State. This happened in Idaho. Apparently, this college he went to in Washington State was only about 10 minutes from University of Idaho. I believe they caught the guy with his father in Pennsylvania. And I thought this was kind of interesting. How they actually wound up catching him was through genealogy databases. So, 23andMe and whatever, Ancestry.com, whatever these sites are, where you send a swab of your spit away and they tell you, your ethnic background or the history of your family. It's these companies turn over information to police, the FBI, without warrants, without search warrants. All this information goes into a database, and I thought it was kind of ironic. That's actually how this guy was caught. Yesterday, a Buffalo Bills player by the name of Damar Hamlin collapsed on the field, apparently cardiac arrest. And, I thought this story goes to show kind of how tribal and how divisive we are, and how everybody wants to spin a news story for political gain. All the responses that I saw on forums and articles and things like that were half the people saying football should be banned. How do we allow football to happen? It's just a game, and, people are having cardiac arrest because they're getting hit on the field. We got CTE, traumatic brain injury. But you also have a lot of people saying that this was an injury from the thing in your arm. And it is interesting how we're seeing more and more professional athletes and young people kind of like collapsing, having strokes, having heart attacks at young ages. Is this because we have 24/7 media and these stories just get out a lot more? Or are we seeing an uptick in people, young people dying of heart-related injuries, young people collapsing on fields? I thought this was an interesting story. New York lawmakers become the highest paid in the nation. They recently gave themselves a 29% pay hike. Think about this. Americans are struggling. We're already seeing layoffs. We're going to see more layoffs in 2023. Inflation's out of control. and New York lawmakers give themselves a 29% pay hike. I thought the timing of this was kind of interesting. So I think 23, 24 different states recently hiked their minimum wage. New York State recently hiked their minimum wage to $15 an hour to match New York City's minimum wage of $15 per hour. And so I think it's kind of interesting. I think maybe they think they'll get less backlash. Like, hey, we're not just giving ourselves raises. We recently raised the minimum wage to $15. Okay, so, we gave people a raise so that they're still living at the poverty line, while we who make hundreds of thousands of dollars barely doing any work gave ourselves a 29% pay hike. I thought this was interesting. Hyundai and Kia are expecting auto sales to jump 10% in 2023. So we're hearing about a used car bubble that's about to pop. We're hearing about how car prices are coming down after seeing a 44% increase between 2020 and 2023. But Hyundai and Kia are actually expecting a 10% jump in sales in 2023. I do see a lot more Hyundais and Kias on the road. Hyundai and Kia, which were both previously kind of like sort of crappy, kind of ugly cars, economy cars. Now they make some sharp cars, like that Kia Telluride, really sharp. A friend of mine just got the Honda Palisade. I mean, just as nice as any other SUV on the market. I have a Honda myself. They're decent cars, and they got a great warranty, and they're starting to look a lot better. But I was kind of surprised to see that they're expecting a 10% jump in sales amidst what I would say is a recession. For weeks, there have been rumors about Hooters closing and rebranding because apparently millennials and Gen Zers don't care about boobs. Hooters is saying that's not true, but we'll see if it winds up happening. An article from The Independent. I thought this was just kind of common sense and kind of stupid. Could friendship be the key to combating millennial loneliness? How stupid of an article is that? If you're lonely, do you think friends could make you less lonely? Well, yeah, common sense. Tesla stock could fall another 60% if it's valued like Ford and other traditional auto companies. Tesla is a company that is famous for being overvalued. At the current amount of cars that they sell and the current amount of revenue they generate, it would take like 700 years for the stock price to actually reflect the valuation. Obviously Tesla makes a lot of their money from selling carbon credits, and also I think there's a lot of blue sky money. A lot of people are very hopeful that like Tesla could change the way that we power homes in America. Is going to be the start of the EV revolution, and I think people put a lot more value in Tesla because of that. But it's likely that Tesla stock will continue to drop in 2023. The U.S. bond market had its worst year in history with a loss of 13%. I forget the percentage. That's like 4 to 5x larger than the previous worst year back in 1994, which is 2.9%. People are looking at Shopify, wondering if Shopify is now a buy. Shopify is down 75% on the year. Is Shopify a buy in 2023? It's down 15% in the last month, down 75% on the year. If we are heading into a recession or we're already in a recession, I think Shopify stock could fall a little bit lower, but I am going to start looking at Shopify as a buy. New York Magazine article, remote work is going to devastate American cities. They say that cities must let developers turn office space into housing. These would be huge projects, big challenge with zoning, high interest rates. Obviously, office buildings weren't designed and weren't meant to house people. They don't have all the bathrooms. They aren't broken down in that way. Could it be done? Yes, but it's a huge project that would likely take years and probably even decades if you want to turn entire cities, office buildings into residential buildings. And also, with interest rates as high as they are right now, I don't know that developers are going to take on these projects unless cities subsidize it. Let's see, where in the U.S. do people have the most second homes? I initially thought this was kind of an interesting article. This was a study done by the Madison Trust Company, but most of the cities are just kind of vacation areas. Marinette, Wisconsin, and Iron Mountain, Michigan, 27% of all homes there are people's second homes. Aylesbury and Cambridge, Maryland, and Delaware, Glenwood Springs, Colorado, Myrtle Beach. Most of these are vacation areas. And if you look at an area like Marinette, Wisconsin, or especially Iron Mountain, Michigan, I mean, it's pretty much like uninhabitable for 6 months of the year at least. They get like multiple feet of snow at a time in Iron Mountain, Michigan. Not a lot of people are going to live there, but it's really rural. Homes are really cheap, so it's not really surprising that people have second homes there. And then kind of last story of the day, I saw an article, Gen Z is rewriting the playbook on resume gaps. They've taken more breaks from work than other generations, either to travel, find themselves, further develop skills. I thought this was kind of crazy, right? The oldest Gen Zs are 25. How many, how much have they actually worked, and how many breaks can they actually take? But amongst everybody, the amount of people dropping out of the workforce and taking breaks from work to care for a sick relative, to take time to themselves, they just feel like dropping out of the workplace, it's 14 times higher than in the 70s. And I guess that's kind of all the stories that we have for today. Again, if you guys have any stories that you guys want me to share in future videos or kind of add to the news, drop a comment down below, drop a link, or let me know what they are. If you guys enjoyed the video, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button down below. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button down below and ring the bell, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.